She doesn't have our eyes. My mother-in-law said it while holding my newborn daughter beside the recovery bed. Not quietly. Not privately. She said it loud enough for my husband's cousins to stop talking. Loud enough for the nurse adjusting my forehead to glance up. And then she smiled at me. Slowly. Like she'd finally caught me doing something wrong. I had given birth 36 hours earlier. My body still felt borrowed. My daughter was asleep against a striped hospital blanket. And somehow I was already on trial. Settle in for this one. Seriously. Grab something warm to drink if you need to. Because the next 10 days turned my entire marriage into something that felt less like a family and more like a courtroom. My name is Elise Harper. I'm 34 years old. And unlike the Mercer family, I don't bluff well. I'm a forensic accountant. I spend my life tracing patterns people try to hide. Missing money. Altered timelines. Tiny inconsistencies that unravel entire stories. That mattered later. At the time, all I noticed was this. My husband, Nathan, froze. His mother, Vivian Mercer, kept staring at my daughter. And his sister Avery folded her arms like she'd been waiting for this moment all week. She doesn't look like a Mercer, Vivian said again. Nobody corrected her. That was the part one remembered most. Not the accusation. The silence after it. Because silence tells you who's willing to let something happen. And in that room, nobody stopped her. Not even Nathan. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 2 days later. When I discovered they had already been talking about me before the baby was even born. We brought Claire home on a rainy Thursday afternoon. The nursery still smelled like fresh paint and unopened diapers. Nathan carried the car seat carefully through the front door while I stood in the hallway trying not to cry from exhaustion. Not sadness. Just impact. Childbirth feels like surviving weather. You don't realize how damaged you are until the storm passes. For a few hours things almost felt normal. Then Nathan's phone buzzed. Once. Twice. 3 times. He looked down at the screen and immediately locked it. Too fast. That's when I noticed something. Nathan had started doing that every time his mother texted. Tiny movement. Instant screen tilt. Like reflex. What? I asked. Nothing. Too quick again. Later that night, while he was upstairs warming bottles, his phone lit up beside me on the couch. Avery Mercer. Preview message. She really expects us to believe the timing lines up? I stared at the screen. Another message arrived immediately. Vivian. Keep this conversation off Facebook until we know for sure. My stomach went cold. Not because I was confused. 'Cause suddenly I wasn't. They weren't wondering. They had already decided. I opened the messages. I know some people will judge that. I don't care. There are moments when privacy stops mattering. That was one of them. The family group chat stretched back nearly 5 months. Comments about my late work nights. Comments about a male client I met twice in public. Comments about Claire's hair. Her skin tone. Her dimples. Every ordinary thing had been turned into evidence. And then I found the message that changed everything. Vivian. Nathan has never looked like Gregory anyway. I read it 3 times. Never looked like Gregory. Not your father. Not my husband. Gregory. Cold. Detached. Like even she didn't fully believe it. You're still here. Stay with me. Because that sentence ended up destroying the entire Mercer family. Vivian announced the dinner on Sunday morning. Not invited. Announced. Family clarity dinner, she called it. Like we were attending mediation instead of an ambush. Nathan stood in the kitchen reading the text while Claire slept against my shoulder. She says everyone's coming, he said quietly. Of course they were. People love public judgment when they're certain they won't be the target. The Mercer house sat outside Charleston near the water. Huge white columns. Perfect hedges. Generational money disguised as tradition. Vivian treated that house like a museum dedicated to the Mercer bloodline. Every photo on the walls mattered. Every heirloom had a story. Every person had a rank. And me? I was the scholarship girl Nathan married anyway. The woman who worked too much. The outsider. Dinner started politely. That almost made it worse. Vivian served sea base. Avery poured wine. Gregory Mercer talked about local elections while everybody pretended this wasn't theater. Then dessert arrived. And Vivian stood. No glass tapping. No announcement. She didn't need one. When a child enters this family, she said calmly, certainty matters. There it was. Nathan stiffened beside me. Avery avoided my eyes because she was trying not to smile too early. Vivian folded her napkin perfectly. A DNA test would settle this respectfully. Respectfully. That word almost made me laugh. Then Gregory spoke for the first time. If there's nothing to hide, Elise. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. I looked around the table. 8 people. All waiting for my reaction. My humiliation had already been rehearsed. That's when I did the one thing Vivian Mercer never expected. I agreed immediately. Absolutely, I said. The room changed. You could feel it. Because predators prepare for panic. Not calm. But I wasn't finished. I'd like one additional test, I said. And suddenly, Vivian stopped smiling. Nathan looked at me carefully on the drive home. Not suspicious. Worried. You know something, he said. I watched the highway lights pass across the windshield. I know how people hide things, I answered. That wasn't enough for him. But it was true. For 12 years I'd investigated financial fraud for corporate litigation firms. People think lies collapse dramatically. They don't. They collapse quietly. Through timing errors. Patterns. Contradictions nobody notices because everyone's distracted by emotion. And the Mercer family was emotional. Very emotional. Which made them sloppy. My condition had been simple. If they wanted paternity testing, fine. But I also wanted inheritance verification tied to Gregory Mercer's estate trust. That got their attention immediately. See, Gregory's family money operated through a bloodline clause. Only biological descendants inherited voting rights in the family holdings. Nathan once joked about it after too much wine. Apparently my DNA is worth more than my personality. At the time I laughed. Now I kept thinking about Vivian's message. Nathan has never looked like Gregory anyway. Not once. Something about that sentence bothered me. Not emotionally. Structurally. Like a number in the wrong column. The next morning Vivian called Nathan 6 times before noon. By evening she called me directly. Elise, she said smoothly, there's no reason to make this uglier than necessary. Necessary for who? A pause. Then colder. You know exactly what I mean. No. I knew exactly what she meant. She wanted one answer tested. I wanted all of them tested. And those are very different things. That night Nathan finally asked the question sitting between us. Do you think my mother is hiding something? I looked at Claire sleeping in her bassinet. Then at the family photo Nathan kept beside the dresser. Gregory. Vivian. Avery. Nathan. One of them suddenly looked misplaced. I think, I said carefully, your mother is terrified of something. And I was starting to realize, it might not be me. The testing appointment happened Tuesday morning. Private lab. Chain of custody documentation. No shortcuts. Vivian arrived overdressed for a DNA collection. Cream blazer. Diamond earrings. Perfect makeup. Like appearance could influence biology. Avery came too. Mostly to witness my downfall. Claire slept through the entire appointment. Tiny fists curled beside her face while adults quietly prepared to detonate each other's lives. The technician swabbed Nathan first. Then Claire. Then Gregory. That part surprised everyone. Including Vivian. You said inheritance verification, I reminded her. Her jaw tightened. Gregory barely reacted. Honestly, that bothered me more. He seemed detached. Too detached. Like a man who had spent decades emotionally standing 3 feet outside his own marriage. Afterward Nathan and I drove home in silence. Halfway there he finally asked, if this proves Claire's mine, what happens next? I looked out the passenger window. Your family apologizes. But even while saying it, I knew they wouldn't. People who build identities around superiority rarely survive humiliation gracefully. That evening I found another mistake. Another pattern. Nathan left his laptop open in the study. An email chain sat on screen. Subject line. Contingency planning. Between Vivian, Avery, and the family attorney. One sentence froze me completely. If Nathan isn't Gregory's biological son, trust distribution becomes complicated. Not hypothetical. Not theoretical. Specific. Planned. My pulse slowed instead of speeding up. That always happens when things become dangerous. The clearer the pattern, the calmer I get. Because now I knew two things. Vivian had been afraid long before Claire was born. And somewhere inside those test results was a secret she'd already spent years preparing for. The problem? She thought she could still control how it surfaced. She was wrong. The results came in Friday afternoon. The lab director asked me to come in personally. That never means something simple. Nathan drove. Neither of us spoke much. Claire slept in the back seat while rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside the office, the director handed us 2 sealed envelopes. Paternity first, she said gently. Nathan opened it himself. 99.999%. Confirmed biological father. His shoulders dropped instantly. Not because he doubted me. Because pressure exhausts people even when they resist believing it. Then came the second envelope. Inheritance verification. The room went very still. I watched Nathan read the page once. Then again. Then slower. His face changed in stages. Confusion. Calculation. Impact. What does this mean? He asked quietly. The director folded her hands. It means Gregory Mercer is not your biological father. Nathan stared at her. No. I'm sorry. Silence. Real silence. The kind that makes air feel heavy. The report continued. Avery Mercer. Confirmed biological child of Gregory Mercer. Nathan Mercer. Excluded. One sibling inherited the Mercer bloodline. The other didn't. And suddenly Vivian's obsession made horrifying sense. She hadn't been protecting the family from me. She'd been protecting herself from a secret she thought biology might expose someday. Nathan leaned back slowly like the room had tilted beneath him. Then he asked the question I already knew was coming. Does my mother know? The director didn't answer. She didn't need to. Some truths arrive already carrying their own answer. Nathan looked at me. Completely calm now. Oddly calm. What happens at the dinner tomorrow? I thought about Vivian arranging chairs like a queen preparing court. About Avery sharpening rumors into weapons. About humiliation planned down to dessert plates. Then I answered honestly. The truth finally picks a target. Vivian called it the resolution gathering. Like she was hosting a charity event instead of an execution. Saturday. 2 o'clock. Mercer Estate Library. Everyone arrived early. That told me everything. People arrive early when they expect entertainment. Vivian wore emerald green. Avery sat beside her already holding champagne. Gregory stood near the fireplace looking tired. Not nervous. Tired. Nathan carried Claire inside while I walked beside him completely empty-handed. No purse. No folder. No visible anger. That unsettled Vivian immediately. You seem confident, she said. I'm peaceful, I answered. Different thing entirely. The attorney arrived 10 minutes later carrying the sealed reports. Vivian smiled at him before he even sat down. That smile disappeared quickly. He began with paternity confirmation. Nathan confirmed as Claire's biological father. No dispute. No ambiguity. Avery's expression collapsed first. Then Vivian straightened slightly, still holding on to hope. Continue, she said. The attorney opened the second report. Due to inheritance clause concerns, additional lineage markers were reviewed. Gregory finally looked up. The attorney adjusted his glasses. Miss Mercer, the results indicate Nathan Mercer is not biologically related to Gregory Mercer. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Vivian went white instantly. Avery whispered. What? Gregory closed his eyes. Not shocked. Not confused. Just tired. That's when I understood something terrifying. He already knew. Maybe not officially. Maybe not scientifically. But somewhere over 40 years of marriage, he had known. Vivian stood abruptly. That's impossible. Her voice cracked hard on the last word. The attorney continued carefully. Avery Mercer was confirmed as Gregory Mercer's biological child. Nathan was excluded. The room shifted sideways emotionally. Everything Vivian built her authority on, bloodline, legacy, purity, collapsed in under 15 seconds. Then Gregory finally spoke. Quietly. I asked you once, he said to Vivian. You told me to never ask again. Nobody looked at me anymore. That part mattered. Because the woman they brought to destroy was suddenly the only person in the room who hadn't lied. What happened after wasn't dramatic. That surprised me most. No screaming. No shattered glasses. Just collapse. Slow human collapse. Vivian sat down carefully like her knees no longer trusted her. Avery started crying first. Not for Nathan. For herself. Because suddenly the Mercer family story had cracks running through every wall. Gregory remained near the fireplace staring at nothing. Nathan looked at his mother for a very long time before speaking. "You spent 10 days trying to prove my daughter didn't belong here," he said quietly. Vivian's lips trembled. "I was protecting this family." "No," Nathan answered. "You were protecting a lie." Silence again. Heavy silence. The attorney quietly gathered the paperwork. Nobody stopped him. Nobody wanted to touch the truth anymore. Then Vivian looked at me. Actually looked at me. Not like an outsider. Not like competition. Like someone finally seeing the damage she caused. And somehow, that was worse. "I didn't know what else to do," she whispered. I believed her. That's the uncomfortable part. Cruel people are not always cartoon villains. Sometimes they're terrified people protecting collapsing identities. Nathan picked up Claire's carrier. Tiny pink blanket. Tiny sleeping face. Completely unaware she had just ended a 40-year deception by existing. Before we left, Gregory stopped Nathan near the doorway. "You're still my son," he said. Nathan nodded once. But his eyes looked older. Outside, rain had started falling softly across the driveway. Nathan strapped Claire into the car seat while I stood beside him under the porch light. Then he said something I still think about. "My whole life," he said quietly, "they treated blood like ownership." He closed the car door gently. "But the only people who actually chose me," he looked at me, "were you and her." We drove home in silence. Not empty silence. Finished silence. And 3 months later, Vivian mailed Claire a handwritten birthday card. No mention of DNA. No mention of bloodlines. Just 6 words written carefully at the bottom. "Thank you for bringing my son home."